Power, in the traditional sense, has always been measured in visible terms. The size of an army, the strength of a navy, the sophistication of fighter aircraft, and the reach of missile systems have long defined how nations are ranked in the global hierarchy. In today's geopolitical landscape, this perception continues to dominate discourse. Nations invest billions into defense modernization, naval expansion, and strategic deterrence, all in pursuit of securing their place in an increasingly contested world order. Yet, beneath this visible layer of power lies a quieter, more enduring force, one that does not rely on coercion, but on attraction, not on intimidation, but on influence. This is soft power, and for a country like India, it represents a strategic asset of profound significance.
Before we move forward, please like, subscribe, and share Strategic Vanguard, and be up to date with the latest news and happenings from the world of defense and strategic affairs. Tune into our video channels in Rumble and YouTube. And if you want to hear the audio version, please tune into Strategic Vanguard Deep Dive in Spotify.
Soft power is often misunderstood, particularly in civilizational states like India, where it is frequently reduced to cultural pride or historical nostalgia. Yoga is celebrated for its ancient origins, Indian philosophy for its depth, and classical art forms for their aesthetic richness. While these are undeniably valuable, such a framing misses the strategic essence of soft power. Soft power is not about celebrating culture, it is about leveraging culture as an instrument of statecraft. It is the ability of a nation to shape the preferences, perceptions, and decisions of others without the use of force. In this sense, soft power is not an alternative to hard power, but a complementary force that amplifies a nation's overall strategic influence. At its core, soft power operates by shaping perception. In international relations, perception is not a superficial layer, it is a strategic variable. Countries that are perceived as stable, philosophical, inclusive, and culturally rich often encounter less resistance in their global engagements. Their policies are viewed with greater trust, their intentions with less suspicion, and their presence with more acceptance. India's global image, shaped through centuries of philosophical thought, spiritual traditions, and cultural continuity, creates a perception of moral depth and civilizational stability. This perception, in turn, becomes a form of strategic capital. It reduces friction in diplomacy, enhances credibility in multilateral forums, and opens doors that might otherwise remain closed. The global institutionalization of practices like yoga is a clear example of how perception translates into influence. When the world collectively observes the International Day of Yoga, it is not merely participating in a wellness activity. It is engaging with an idea rooted in Indian civilizational thought. This engagement creates familiarity, and familiarity reduces resistance. Over time, such repeated exposure builds a subconscious association between India and concepts of balance, wisdom, and well-being. These associations are not accidental. They are strategic outcomes, whether consciously pursued or organically evolved. Beyond perception, soft power operates at a deeper level, through the influence of ideas. The most enduring form of power is not the ability to control actions, but the ability to shape thinking. When intellectual frameworks originating from one civilization begin to influence global discourse, that civilization gains a subtle yet powerful form of control. Indian philosophical traditions, including Vedantic thought and Buddhist principles, have increasingly found resonance in global academic, corporate, and leadership spaces. Concepts such as mindfulness, non-duality, and holistic thinking are no longer confined to Indian texts. They are being integrated into management philosophies, psychological practices, and leadership models worldwide. This intellectual penetration represents a higher form of soft power. It is not visible in military parades or defense budgets, but it shapes how global elites think, decide, and act. When decision-makers in different parts of the world adopt frameworks influenced by Indian thought, they are, in effect, operating within a cognitive space shaped by India's civilizational legacy. This creates alignment, not through coercion, but through shared understanding. In strategic terms, this is a form of influence that is both deep and enduring. Another critical dimension of soft power lies in the role of the diaspora. India's global diaspora is one of the largest and most influential in the world. Spread across continents, embedded within diverse societies, and active in various sectors, the Indian diaspora functions as a distributed network of influence. Unlike formal diplomatic channels, which operate within defined frameworks, the diaspora operates organically, influencing societies from within. Cultural familiarity created through diaspora presence often translates into political acceptance, economic cooperation, and narrative alignment. This embedded influence is particularly significant because it is not easily disrupted. Military alliances can shift, trade agreements can be renegotiated, but cultural and social integration is far more resilient. The presence of Indian communities in key global economies creates a layer of stability in bilateral relations. It fosters mutual understanding, reduces cultural barriers, and creates pathways for cooperation that extend beyond formal agreements. In this sense, the diaspora is not just a demographic phenomenon, it is a strategic asset. When viewed in contrast to hard power, the unique characteristics of soft power become even more evident. Hard power operates through coercion and compulsion. It is immediate, visible, and often decisive in short-term conflicts. However, it also generates resistance, invites countermeasures, and requires continuous investment to sustain. Soft power, on the other hand, operates through attraction and persuasion. It is gradual, often invisible, but deeply pervasive. It does not provoke resistance in the same way as hard power, and once established, it tends to sustain itself with minimal intervention. This distinction is crucial in understanding the evolving nature of global competition. In a world where direct military confrontation between major powers is increasingly constrained by the risks of escalation, influence becomes the primary arena of competition. Nations seek to shape global narratives, influence international institutions, and align other countries with their strategic objectives. In this context, soft power becomes not just relevant, but essential. It allows nations to achieve strategic outcomes without resorting to force, thereby reducing costs and risks. India's position in this landscape is particularly interesting. Unlike countries that have had to construct their soft power through deliberate state-driven initiatives, India's soft power is largely organic. It emerges from a civilizational continuum that spans millennia, encompassing philosophy, spirituality, art, and social practices. This organic nature gives India's soft power a level of authenticity that is difficult to replicate. It is not perceived as propaganda or projection. It is seen as a natural expression of a living civilization. In contrast, other major powers have adopted different approaches to soft power. The cultural influence of the United States, driven by Hollywood, music, and digital platforms, has been highly effective in shaping global perceptions. However, it is also closely tied to commercial and political interests, which sometimes limits its acceptance. Similarly, the efforts of China to project soft power through institutions and initiatives have faced challenges due to perceptions of state control and strategic intent. These comparisons highlight a key advantage for India. Its soft power is less contested, more widely accepted, and deeply rooted. However, this advantage also comes with a challenge. The very organic nature of India's soft power means that it is often underutilized from a strategic perspective. While other nations actively integrate soft power into their foreign policy frameworks, India's approach has been more passive. Cultural assets exist, influence flows naturally, but the absence of a coherent strategy limits the extent to which this influence can be leveraged for geopolitical outcomes. This raises a critical question. Is India fully aware of the strategic potential of its soft power? And more importantly, is it prepared to integrate this potential into a broader framework of national strategy? In an era defined by competition for influence, the ability to shape narratives, build alliances, and create long-term alignment will be as important as military capability. For India, this means moving beyond a passive appreciation of its cultural heritage towards an active utilization of its civilizational assets. The strategic integration of soft power does not require a transformation of India's identity. It requires a shift in perspective. It involves recognizing that practices like yoga, traditions of philosophical inquiry, and the global presence of the diaspora are not just cultural phenomena, but strategic tools. It involves aligning cultural diplomacy with foreign policy objectives, supporting intellectual exchange that amplifies Indian thought, and creating platforms that enhance India's global cultural presence. Ultimately, the interplay between hard power and soft power will define the trajectory of nations in the 21st century. Military strength will continue to be essential, particularly in ensuring security and deterrence. However, the ability to influence without coercion, to shape without imposing, and to align without compelling will determine the depth and durability of a nation's global influence. In this equation, soft power is not a secondary factor. It is a force multiplier. For India, this realization carries profound implications. As it navigates a complex geopolitical environment, balancing relationships with major powers and asserting its role in the global order, the strategic use of soft power could provide a decisive edge. It offers a pathway to influence that is sustainable, scalable, and aligned with India's civilizational ethos. It allows India to project strength not just through capability, but through character. In the final analysis, the question is not whether soft power matters. It clearly does. The real question is whether India will choose to harness it strategically. Because in a world where power is increasingly defined by influence, the quiet force of attraction may prove to be more consequential than the visible display of strength. And for a civilization as deep and enduring as India's, that quiet force may well be its greatest strategic advantage.
Thank you for joining us on this Strategic Vanguard deep dive. If you found value in this analysis, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We bring you fresh deep dives every Wednesday and Saturday here on YouTube and Rumble, and you can also catch the audio versions on Spotify and Amazon Music. Just search for Strategic Vanguard Deep Dive. For more insights, articles, and discussions, subscribe to our blog at strategicvanguard.com. Your support helps us grow and bring you more in-depth analysis on defense, geopolitics, and strategy. Until next time, stay informed, stay strategic.